Okay, so today I'll be interviewing Isabella Koepf of Rise Beyond Trauma. So, welcome to the Everyday Tarot Podcast, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, healer, tarot enthusiast, and professional witch. And today I'm joined by my guest, Isabella Koepf. Izzy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, my name is Isabella. I'm a mental health counselor, yoga therapist, and Ayurvedic practitioner. I'm currently practicing out of Washington State, but working with people around the world. Spent a lot of years living internationally, about six or over 6 years living in India, studying a lot of metaphysical, spiritual practices, explored a lot of different spiritual paths. Currently a practitioner of Bhakti Yoga, but very eclectic in my spiritual approach as well. But yeah, I'm excited to be here and talk about all things woo.
Yay. Yeah, so if you hear this episode and you'd like to be a guest on the show, I'll have my guest inquiry in the show notes. And if you want to connect further with Izzy, I'll put the Instagram website for both your Instagrams, your email, etc. So all of that will be in the show notes. And if you haven't listened to my other seasons yet, you can check those out. So yeah, Izzy, what is your first deck story? How did you find it or how did it find you?
Yeah, so my first deck actually came from a really nice girl at a random hostel out of Asheville, North Carolina. And I remember I was on a road trip. This was, I think, 5 or 6 years ago now. And I was on a road trip down the East Coast and ended up in a hostel in Asheville where this girl was, kind of very witchy. She would had like 5 decks with her and, doing all the spreads in the morning
I love it.
on her hostel bunk bed. And I kind of like was interested watching her do it, and she gifted me like that really traditional like
The
deck.
brighter way.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
How
yeah,
nice. You got a gift for your
yeah,
first deck. Okay.
yeah. It felt very like powerful to be gifted, and she was even telling me how like her first deck that had been gifted to her was her
She
first
was
deck.
passing it on.
Yeah. So it was like a little cute little hostel moment. Um, Not hostel like angry, but
Hostel, like you're
yeah,
lodging.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I used that deck for a while. It was a little too traditional for me, so branched into some other kind of more creative decks. Now I'm a big user of the Light Seers Tarot. Is one of my favorites. But yeah,
Yeah. Which, yeah, you've used our full moon circles, which I like to
yes, I
see.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So your first deck found you
Mhm.
via a stranger at a hostel. But I'm like, no one's a stranger actually at a hostel
Mhm.
because that's the vibe.
Totally. It's very serendipitous.
Yeah. So how long have you been practicing tarot?
Yeah, I feel like, well, I think in some way or the other, I've been exposed to tarot and astrology and kind of spiritual practice in general for most of my life, but never really got very seriously into it until I got my first deck about 5 or 6 years ago. And then I was like every day pulling cards and just like obsessed and constantly, doing all the YouTube, Instagram tarot and,
Like you doing it or like watching other
watching.
people? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
watching. Yeah.
Like watching people do pull a
Yeah.
million cards. Okay. So, yeah, I know like we've talked about you like to use tarot for healing or guidance. I'm curious how you found healing through tarot, but I think you also want to share about like some, I don't know, what's the right word? Like some challenges through tarot or just pulling with relationships and pulling that every day and
Yeah.
like maybe the pros and cons of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess also that, that other piece when I got my first deck, I was kind of on that road trip was also like a healing journey for me, like post-divorce. And I think I was in a very confused place in my life and
Mm.
I just kind of didn't really know what direction I was going in or,
Literally.
yeah,
So you're at a
literally.
hostel.
Yeah. Just aimlessly wandering around the country and searching for a sign, searching for answers, searching for someone or something to tell me what to do with my life.
Mm.
Still am very much so. But I've found so much clarity in these tools because I think that's really what tarot was a lot for me in the beginning was that kind of like future predictor of like I need to know what to do next, or I need to know like something about this person, because I'm just on that never-ending single girl hunt for a man, which has not gone very well. I'm sure some of the people can relate to that, the current dating climate.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and I think we're gonna do a spread regarding that later. So
yeah,
stay tuned.
yeah. Yeah, but I think tarot for me was really mostly that for a long time. It was just, like how do I navigate the pain from healing out of this, toxic relationship I was getting out of, and how do I find a new relationship, or like tell me about this person I just met, like what,
Mhm.
tell me what's going to happen in this relationship, or and I feel like even now I'm on a lot of those like tarot Facebook groups, and almost everyone is like doing a relationship reading, So I know I'm not alone in that one, but I think that, yeah, we were kind of talking earlier about how that can be a bad thing sometimes, where just pooling, continuing to pool cards until you get the answer that you want. And I definitely was guilty of that for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious then. So, like, how did you break that? Or did you like feel like you got to a different place in life and then you weren't doing that as much? Or
Yeah, I think a lot of my journey with tarot has been like a lot of experimentation, and
Hmm.
just sort of like I want to understand the patterns in this and how does this show up in my life. And I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm a very inquisitive kind of investigative person by nature. And so part of me was kind of like, okay, I want to
Mm.
test this out.
Yeah,
Like, is
like
this really,
experiment.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
can this really predict, or is this bullshit, And so I was like, I think for a long time would just like kind of pull cards just to see what it would say. And a lot of times I would get the answer that I didn't want, which really was the truth. But sometimes we don't want to face the truth in our lives. Um, yeah, and I think that that kind of helped me clarify, like over time, I think in my years of practice with tarot, that um I've really tried to challenge myself to stop questioning the first spread that I put out, because I do really, I guess I kind of practice more in that intuitive sense when I'm reading tarot, that I think, I really connect to my gut sense when I'm pulling
Yeah.
cards. And so I know, and when I am pulling that, I'm like, okay, there's a reason that these cards are out here. And if I kind of push that away or deny it, it's like I'm denying some truth that I don't want to see. And so I think just having done that a lot, I realized like, oh, I'm really just like trying to stick my head in the sand here.
Yeah.
And
I
yeah.
feel like that, yeah, that like slightly skeptical, like experimentation. I feel like I remember doing that too. I think now when I think about it, I think it's like both the pro and the con of like reading for yourself.
Oh,
Is that right? Like there's no one else to see. So
yeah.
like you can keep pulling cards or you can, right, have your skepticism or do different things, right? You're not going to a reader necessarily and like paying per card or per time. And so there's sometimes like there is no finality and you're like, oh
Mhm.
my God, I could just pull cards for hours.
Yeah.
But I think also, yeah, I know for me, like it helped, yeah, actually like hone my intuition.
Mhm.
Because, like you said, I think over time you get a little bit more like, oh, yeah, okay, like actually that first card had some honesty to it, or it felt harsh at the time. But now that I've like maybe seen more of the spread or more information, or even just like 3 weeks passed, and then you're like, oh, yeah, that's definitely what's going on.
Totally. I love to like
Yeah.
photograph my spreads
Oh,
because of
yeah.
that too. Because then I'm like, a few months will go by and I'll be like, oh, I had asked about this months ago, and now
Hmm.
like something has changed, and I want to see like, was it right? Because I
Yeah.
can't remember. I've
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
horrible
I know.
memory.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you like so it sounds like yeah, you've always been sort of intuitive with it. Like did you do any like I have to learn how to do tarot, like do a course, read a book?
Never.
No.
I
Okay.
think actually you gave me one book,
Oh
and
yeah.
I think I skimmed it once, and then I was like, okay,
The
cool.
kitchen table tarot.
Yeah.
I think yeah.
I mean, I definitely do. Like even now when I'm reading, I still like to read the book
Yeah.
that
Oh
like,
same.
to
Yeah.
kind of read the what it says about that card. And I like to kind of still sometimes I'll Google the card and like some of those like big sites to see like, okay, what are some of the themes in this? But I think that's been the biggest thing. And actually kind of to go back to that other piece around my journey with tarot, I think it was also that kind of constant pulling of cards and questioning. I think it was also like a questioning of myself.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm questioning my own judgment. Which is part of what I think a lot of us experience when we get out of a bad relationship. We're like, oh, I chose this person
Yeah.
though. How do I trust myself again? And like learning that,
Hmm.
oh, I can trust my gut instinct and like, can I really listen to that and lean into that? And that I think really tarot helped me also hone that skill of like, no, I'd actually have a really strong intuitive sense of people and of things. Can I like really listen to that the
Yeah.
first time? Because that's when I get into trouble is when I question it and then I push over that like intuitive gut sense. And then I end up in all sorts of weird situations. But
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think like a lot of us are not taught to trust our intuitions, especially if you were socialized as a woman. Um, yeah, I'm like it took me, I feel like my only like experience with intuition was like going to bookstores. I remember that like going to bookstores and being like, what book do I need right now? Like a bit of that before I ever did tarot. Um,
Yeah. No, and I don't know
yeah.
if you've ever read like the Celestine Prophecy. Have you ever read that book?
Mm-mm.
It's one of those like big, very famous New Age books. It was one of the starter books in my spiritual journey. But there's a part of the book that talks a lot about like starting to connect to signs and how do you like just notice those things and the hero in the book, he has this moment where he's like notices changes in like how you look at nature and it looks a little more beautiful on one side versus the other,
Mm.
and that there's that kind of like glimmer that like draws you in some way, and it's like, oh, I need to walk in this direction. And I think that was even me in the beginning of my like starting to hone that skill of like trying to just be very aware of my surroundings and be really like tuned into that. And I think it's like just a tuning in to what's around me and a tuning into myself as well, that like, can I really like trust whatever is like even intangible for some,
Yeah.
like there's no logic behind it. It's just like some weird gut sense is telling me I need to go right, like I don't know why, but I'm just gonna like wander to the right and see what happens. And
Yeah.
it's taken
That's
me a
that
lot of,
like traveler part of you. I
oh
feel like,
yeah.
right? The wanderer part. The like, yeah, I know it's funny. It's making me think about that. Like, I feel like it was listening to true crime and people talk about how many women get murdered and how many women, like, I mean, not just women, but just that, like, there may have been situations where, like, you got the vibe, or it's like, I feel creeped out right now, or, but that, like, because as women, we're taught to be nice and smile and give everyone a chance, that, like, literally it gets people murdered sometimes because you let Ted Bundy into your door or whatever. Again, I don't want to victim blame, but it's like it felt like listening to true crime, I was like, oh, right, this is intuition, what they're talking about, where you just get a vibe and you don't know why. But I felt like before tarot, it's like I only experienced intuition as like that, where it was like anxiety, or it was like, oh, I need to like lock my door immediately upon getting in my car, or like that it was very fear-based. Um, and so I think when I found tarot and started to like lean more into that and do tarot on my own, it was more of the like, oh, signs and nature and like repetitive numbers, or just like going in a bookstore and being like, what book stands out to me? Like those were about more of where I was like, oh, right, like intuition can also be this thing that's like not just like protecting me from literal evil, but like
Yeah.
but like showing me beauty of life, or like, yeah, what I need to hear right now.
Right.
I think also just like being around other witchy people. Like
Totally.
now it's so normal to me that I'm like, oh yeah, everyone in my life is like looking at signs and listening to birds and
Mhm.
like pulling tarot and doing kitchen magic and like different kinds of things. But yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think that it, reminds me of that piece around like how trauma hurt, like takes away a lot of our intuition sometimes. Like I talk about this with my clients a lot, how, in trauma at what we, what we perceive as safe, we kind of, our body tells us it's dangerous, and what we like perceive as dangerous, our body tells us it's safe. And then we get into all these crazy situations because like literally there's some kind of misalignment
Yeah.
going on, or even just ignoring the cues. Like, oh, I'm not listening to my intuition. I'm not listening to the signs that are telling me like, hell no, don't go over there. Stop. Like, what are you doing? No. And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just play with fire. Why not? I like it, you know? I
Yeah.
like to live on the edge. But yeah, I have lived on the edge a little too long. I'm ready to sit in my rocking chair and just, relax.
Yeah. Yeah. As we record outside today, it's very nice. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Like with trauma that, yeah, it's like these switches get flipped almost. And I feel like it's like our brain's way of trying to like comprehend what's happening when
Yeah.
you're in trauma, right? That like it's like, oh, this is bad, but like it's happening.
Mhm.
And how do I like, yeah, try to disassociate perhaps and feel safe? And then
Right.
we utilize those skills forevermore, even when they're not serving us anymore.
Right. And I think sometimes that journey sometimes does need to start from like external signs. Like maybe I haven't quite learned yet what is that internal
Yeah.
gut sense, and like learn to trust it. And so for a long time I might need to look externally. And for me, like the woo woo in me was like up there with my pendulum every day, and
Yeah.
like with all the tarot cards, and like, every week reading the astrology, and
Mm,
just trying to use all these like external things to help me like predict, or like they just get clarity, because I like can't sometimes get that for myself. And I still like, not saying, oh, that we shouldn't look for external things. It's really important, obviously, right? We're here to talk about tarot. But I think ultimately what that whole process helped for me was to start to connect it internally. It's like, oh, I needed to have some kind of external validation for a period of time
yeah.
to help me learn, oh, this is also what my gut sense is telling me, and like, how do I trust that over time?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's something to hear about like that we know trauma lives in the body and there's like the somatic part that it almost like I'm like I don't totally know the thread that I'm going with here, but like that external like something has to happen externally almost to like transmute the somatic experience of trauma into something else,
Mhm.
into some level of healing. And I know you do lots of somatic practices.
Yeah, no, and I think that like even tarot is very like a very mindful practice. Like
Yeah.
if we can kind of approach it on that level, that it can be a real embodiment. Like I really love, that's why I love like the imagery in cards, because I think it just brings such like that tangible sense. And I've started to in my tarot also get into more of a practice of just looking only at the imagery. And I had this like really interesting spread actually at around the eclipse recently that was like so clear. I didn't even need to open the book. I was like,
Mm,
just it's like laid out. You just have to
yeah.
look at the
Like the
imagery. Yeah,
story.
and it was like
Yeah.
so clear. And I love that about that. And it just felt like such an embodied connection of like I can almost see myself in the cards, and I can
Mm,
just feel that like, oh, I can feel myself like walking that path. I can like I have a relationship with this deck that I've been using for so long, and it's like almost like a part of me. It's like an appendage. So I just feel like that is also a really important piece with that intuition of like, you know, really putting energy into your deck, and you know, in some way, like also getting energy from the collective. That's something I've really done a lot of work on, of just like kind of charging my deck in some way, or just like in some way trying to connect to that like intuitive higher energy that can guide the process. And I always like try to connect to that too, like whatever are my like, higher guides in the process.
yeah. Spirit, the
Yeah.
divine universe. Yeah. Yeah. I had a thought there. Oh, yeah. So if you get like a new deck, what do you do? How do you connect with it? Do you have like a process, a ritual
Yeah.
of how to
Well,
get to know it or like, yeah.
part of that is definitely some trade secrets in there.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay,
no, I'm
fair.
kidding. No, I mean, there's so many things like in my personal spiritual lineage. Like I'm very connected with Vedic spirituality and Bhakti yoga, and so what some of my I guess I did have a couple of people who like taught me a little bit about tarot, but so yeah, so I had like a tarot kind of teacher, a little like very casual teacher, who was also in the Bhakti yoga lineage. And what he had shared with me is like that one thing he likes to do is like to have a statue of Vishnu that he keeps whenever he's doing a reading. He keeps
Okay.
it like kind of near him in some way, and also like lights a candle just to kind of really
Yeah.
like create a ritual of
Yeah.
like I'm reading tarot and this isn't me that's reading. I'm tapping into some kind of
Mm.
higher energy or higher force that is guiding my hands in pulling cards, but it's not like these are not my hands. It's like I'm a
Yeah.
vessel that
Yeah.
is being
Like channeling.
yeah. And so like connecting, but like I think that's something, especially in the lineage I'm in, of like being careful of what you connect to,
Yeah.
you know. So because there is, you know, I think a lot of dark forces out there. And so that's something I try to be really intentional about, of like connecting to that higher spiritual force that can guide me in the positive direction that I know it's like this is always working in the interest of
Mm.
what is in my best interest and what is in like interest of the collective in a higher power sense. And even if it is an answer I don't want, it's like I can, that's what I trust. You know, that's what I lean into of like, okay, I know because I have this like higher form that is, you know, protecting me or like that I'm channeling through this, that like is guiding me in the direction I know I need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think to kind of go back to your question too about how to like also get, you know,
Get
how
to
other
know.
ways I
Yeah.
get to know the deck, um, is, you know, I even just have for a long time actually I took my main deck, I took to a lot of very spiritual places, which, you know,
Okay.
maybe some people might be like, oh, that's a no-no.
But you're kind of like charging it
Yeah,
kind of in
I
different
would kind of like
places.
secretly bring it to like temples in India. Be like,
Mhm.
charging my deck, don't tell anyone.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe I shouldn't be saying that publicly or whatever. But I think that even just bringing it to spiritual places, like, you know, we have these like certain places on the earth, I believe, that have like just much higher spiritual energy. And I think that is a way I've charged my deck. And like even like connecting to certain like lunar cycles or high energy times of the year astrologically, like just taking some extra time to like cleanse the deck is something I like to like energetically cleanse my deck in different ways. And yeah, they're kind of a lot of like that, I guess more like
Mhm.
witchy alternative, like energetic ways I work with my deck to get to know it. And then
Yeah.
of course outside of just like literally looking at the imagery and like just getting familiar with it. I think is obviously that's like kind of general, but
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just always curious how what people's kind of like personal practices are.
yeah.
Because I feel like there's a lot of, I don't know, again, right? If you're online or you're watching other tarot readers or like other things and you maybe don't have like one specific mentor, I feel like people are like, well, what do I do? Right? Like, how do I do this?
Which is inherently like now we're going against our own intuition.
Yeah.
Like just asking that question, you know, that's why honestly, I feel like I mean, I still do like to maybe sometimes like listen, obviously listen to other things about tarot and, you know, listen to this amazing podcast by Camille. Like, definitely, you will learn so much. But I think even just like kind of making it your own, I think that's what's really worked for me is that ultimately I feel like it's just a way for me to connect to myself and to like the way I practice spirituality. And so I try to connect to it in that way. And I think that's been a way to even just strengthen my own spiritual practice,
Yeah.
in the way that works for me. And that's going to look so different to everyone else and what their spiritual practice might look like. And I think that's the fun thing about it, though, is we can get creative and really make it our own.
Yeah. And I know that like I do feel like it's like part of the journey everyone goes on is like you see a tarot deck or like go exposed to tarot. You get a deck somehow, some way. You start to do tarot on your own and like do a lot of questioning, do a lot of pull the same cards all the time or like keep pulling cards because you're kind of like in that skepticism place of like, well, I have a deck, but like is it real? Like, is this like actually helping? And then, yeah, I just would having a meetup group where people come, like often people are like, oh yeah, I started tarot like 3 months ago, like pretty new to tarot.
Mm.
And yeah, I do feel like often they want me to tell them how to do it. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's, the therapist in me or just like
Right.
I'm also just like a very open, like find your own way kind of person where I'm like, I'll show you how I do it. I'll share it, right? Like my own practices, but you have to find what works for you. And
Right.
like I think that is like intuitive tarot, right? Like is the idea behind intuitive tarot is that it has to be intuitive to you. Like it doesn't, if it's intuitive to me, but it's not necessarily going to work for you in that way. Um, but I just feel like I see that like it's like a step in the journey of learning tarot is that I feel like kind of everyone goes through that of like, but I just want the answers, right? Like we're very, I feel like again, taught in school or other things that like just regurgitate information. Just like say the thing you know you're supposed to say, right? Just be the good student and like just yeah. And I'm like, it's not really how life works. And I feel like it sets us up for a lot of like failure in life because it's like, oh, well, I did the things right and it didn't work out. And that can be like a very existential crisis of like, well, now what am I supposed to do?
Right.
Like you said, right? How do I figure out what it is I want? Like where I want to be, who I want to be with, who I am. Um, that can feel very just like earth shattering, or even like just like that, like nothing feels real. That you're just like, don't feel grounded in, yeah, space or like what you should be doing.
Right. I think even that question, it's like, oh, there's not some secret formula
Right.
for tarot,
Right.
or for really any, like, I think any kind of
Yeah.
spiritual practice. I mean, there definitely are, there are like well-worn paths,
Right.
it's like, oh, this is a path and a practice that's been done
Yeah.
for
Well,
thousands
you
of
can
years.
take a tarot course online, right? Like lots of people will sell you that.
Yeah.
Learn tarot this way, learn tarot, do
Right.
this, do that, which again, I'm like, might be helpful on your journey. But now I'm like, oh, this also, I feel like this comes up in therapy too, of like us as therapists, where it's like, oh, I just need to like take another training, right? Like, oh no, I just need more education. I have a master's degree. No, I just need more. Then I'll know the answers.
Yeah, I know, and it's reminds me of something I joke about a lot, which is like, oh yeah, just join that $5,000 course, you'll be enlightened in 3 months.
Yeah.
Like that's what it takes. You just have to find the right online course for
Right.
enlightenment, and pay the fee, and you're good. You're done.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
it.
It's like in a lot of ways, it's like it's freedom knowing that like that's not really true. And it's like it's still very hard, right? To be like, so there's no one's gonna like tell me my path, right? Like no one's just gonna like lay it out for me. I think tarot can sometimes, but I think you also have to like be open to it. And I feel like the trusting part of it is also what takes a long time
Yeah.
to be like, oh yeah, I have the vision, right? I know what this could be in 5 years, but I have no idea how I'm gonna get there.
Yeah.
And I just gotta trust. And it's like, oh,
Yeah. And I think
rough.
that's definitely and this is maybe beyond my tarot skills, is I haven't quite gotten to that level of tarot of like being able to predict timing of events. That's
Oh
where
yeah.
like I turn to astrology
Right.
more for that. But I think that is so hard, is sometimes like if I'm asking a question about something in tarot, and it's like too broad, then it's like, okay, now I don't know when this is gonna happen. If I'm doing a past, present, future, that's my favorite. Then it's like, okay, future, is that like 6 months from
Right.
now?
Is this like
But like,
tomorrow?
yeah, like what does that
Yeah.
mean? And then we can get a little lost in that. And so
Yeah.
yeah, that's also, I think, can be a challenging part of that, is
Yeah.
like that there is a timeline of things that, we can't always grasp. And, just having trust and faith in that. And
Yeah, I think it's like that's the fallacy of like the tarot is fortune telling, where it's like, well, maybe, but like what future? Like you're saying, right? Where it's like, sure, maybe. Like I very much see it as like this is a potential path to go down, or like this is the path you're currently going down.
Mhm.
You can choose to stay on that. You can choose to take the fork in the road. You can choose to get off the path.
Right.
But I think, yeah, it's like, again, I think in like pop culture and media, tarot gets depicted as this like scary thing because it's going to tell you your future. And I'm like, well, like you're saying, it's like, well, is that like tomorrow? Is that
Right.
like 3 months from now? Is this like in 40 years? Like, how do I? It feels a lot less scary when I realize that, like, oh, right, this thing could happen, but I don't know. just that like it's not actually it's not that clear or like that predictive in that way.
Right, right.
Or that you're like stuck in it.
Like
Because again,
this is
yeah, right. You pull
miserable
the death
future.
card, you pull the tower,
Yeah.
you pull right whatever it is in your like yeah, when you're in your horror movie watching it about tarot. And they're like, oh my God, this means I'm gonna die tomorrow. And you're like, that's not what the death card means. Like it's a very literal interpretation that's depicted a lot of the time. And again, yeah, I'm like, I don't know any tarot readers of any kind, like personal, professional, that actually like see it that way.
Yeah. It's funny though, it just reminded me of like one of the first tarot readings I did, actually a friend of mine did for me when I was like contemplating my divorce, and the tower card was pulled. And I was like,
oh,
cool. All
yeah,
right.
you're like, there I go, jumping out of the freaking tower.
I'm like, I guess that means I am gonna get divorced.
Right, right, where it's like, oh, I guess this is what's happening.
And I remember, and I actually around that time too, I had like astrology reading, a tarot reading. I had like another like intuitive reading. I was like, I need somebody to tell me like, am I getting divorced? Like, what is happening? I don't know. And every single reading was like, yeah. And I'm like, no, I need to ask someone else. Like, I'm like,
who else can I pay to tell me
what I want to hear? Yeah. That's the problem. That's where it gets a little tricky. And yeah, but I still look back on that reading now and I'm like, yeah, I was so resistant to taking that in, but it was like exactly what was right. I just like, I couldn't accept it. And I think that is also sometimes like, yes, tarot is not like a end all be all future predictor, but like does it have a power to like kind of tell us like this is likely the way the events might unfold if you keep going down that path? Like I have definitely felt that and seen that. And so I think that's been, I think, my own journey of like, coming to an acceptance, but I try to not let that stuff rule my life. Like I don't like let it like, oh, I got a tarot means I need to leave my boyfriend tomorrow. Like that's not, that's not like, I don't think that's a good way to use it. But
I think probably in the same way that your divorce was, there was a part of you that was like, I don't think this is working. Like I feel like maybe I need to get divorced. And then you get the readings and then it tells you that and you're like,
yeah. Well, and that's where it's like I see it as a gut check. It's not like I'm saying like that's where I think it can get dangerous is if I'm putting all of my personal power into something external to me.
And you're like, that's what the cards said.
Yeah. And so I'm letting that rule my life. Ooh, that I think can be dangerous because we don't know what an entity could influence that. And I think that's where we have to like, that's why I do a lot of like protective practice around when I'm doing a personal deep reading, but yeah, I think that just being careful of how we let some of these things rule our life but I think ultimately for me, a lot of it has just been coming back to myself. Like, okay, if I'm doing a reading and this does like strike a chord with something intuitively that's telling me like, I think this is true, then I will like go into that and learning to trust that like, oh, there are moments where I'm pulling cards and I just know like I'm having an off day and I just don't think this reading is going to be like clear because like I'm not clear.
You're not there. Yeah, so, right. Because I think in a lot of ways tarot is like a mirror, right? It's reflecting back to us things we already know a lot of the time, which is honestly also how I feel as a therapist a lot of the time. That it's like, yeah, clients will come in and tell me exactly what they want to do, but they want me to say, you're right. Right. Or like, or do it, right? Or like you said, oh, okay, like I don't want to hear that I'm supposed to get divorced, so I'm just going to go find someone else to tell me no.
Exactly.
And then you looked everywhere and you were like, nope, they all say yes. I guess I have to think about this. Yeah, like sometimes it's just like you're not ready to hear the truth.
Right.
And like you said, right, sometimes maybe the reading isn't clear because you're also not clear about like the situation or the question or the person. But
and I think it reminds me too of that piece of what does it really mean to challenge ourselves and challenge others? Like if I'm working with someone else, like am I just like constantly validating somebody or myself? Like I'm just being like, yeah, I'm doing great.
Right. Like, because that's not actually what therapy is or often what tarot is, right? You're confronted. Like I always will be like, do you feel red to feel right when I pull tarot cards for other people? Because that's what happens. Where you're like, oh,
you're like stripped naked.
Like, I know.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this is my shadow just like pouring out.
Right, you're like, oh no, now they know, and now, yeah, you're like, there it is in visual storytelling,
Yeah.
how I'm feeling and what's going to happen. Yeah, yeah, it is interesting how like the visual imagery of it like really impacts us. I think it's super helpful because, like you said, right, like that is the first part of tarot. Like some cards don't even have any words on them at all. Like sometimes they have numbers, sometimes they have, right, major arcana cards have names or other things, but the imagery is usually what we see first, the artwork, the style, the whatever it is. And as someone who like very much lived in my head in a place of words and was like, that is the end all be all. I'm like, it's very good for me to be like, no,
Yeah.
not that. Like you said, right? Just go off the pictures. Like, what is it that you see without the book, without someone telling you the answers? And I think often, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, no, I know what it's saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes, right, it can help to get clarity or to like affirm it. But I think that's more of the intuitive practice of it is to be like, this is the vibe I get from the card. I open the deck book and I go look at it and it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's right. Or like, oh, okay, that adds a little more nuance to it. Or like you said, like searching it or seeing what other decks say.
I know, and I've even seen like some very like literal readings where it's like the imagery, especially in this one deck I use, it's like just such vivid imagery that it's like I'll like, do reading and then put a card down. And it's like, oh, this literally looks exactly like this person.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is so weird. Like it just
right. You're like, how does this work? Yeah, I think too, like when I have read for other people, which I've like started doing more often, just like I read for myself for 5+ years, like never talked to anyone about it, did it all on my own in my room and stuff. And like reading for other people, it's so interesting because, yeah, often, again, I'm like similarly to therapy, like I feel like I have to be careful what I say because if I say too much, I'm not influencing how they interpret it. Like there's a time and place for that, but it's very cool to do readings for other people where they see an image and they're like, that's my grandmother, right? Or like, that is the house that I used to live down the road from that like is in here.
Yeah. No, and I think that's where, I do think it's so important for tarot to be like, even when I'm reading with other people, or for other people, I think it needs to be a collaborative process because there are things in those cards I can't see that only you can see, And so I always like to have people like look at the imagery themselves and just like that. And I think it's part of that intuitive practice. Like, let's not read the book. Let's not come in with like our preconceived notions of like, I know this card means X. Like, okay, that can be valuable for sure. And very
because also like
but
every deck is different.
Yeah.
As someone that has like different decks now, and I'm like, they're all different. They all have different vibes. They all have different ways of sharing, in my opinion, like what they have to say. And yeah, it can be very cool to look at the same card across decks, but yeah, sometimes it's like the image on that card is the one you need at that time, like you're saying that, or like you said, right, a symbol that means something to someone else that like I would never have known that or been able to interpret that way. I think that that's the very cool thing about tarot that again for me is like it's real. Where it's like I've done readings for people where like they ask, like they'll say like a single question, I'll do like a spread and they have all this stuff in their head about what this is about and who it's about and I'm like I know none of it. I'm just out here being like this is what I see, interpreting their cards. And then I've had the experience where people will be, even happened with my sister, shout out to Cecily if she's listening, where she's like oh my God. And like turning to her friend and being like, this is what it's about. Where I'm like, I didn't even know who it was about, but I was right doing the reading for her. And like she was having her own experience of what was coming through with the tarot cards. But I felt like in that way, right? Like I'm channeling something that like is for her. But I don't really even have the information. I'm just kind of like laying it out how I see it. And she's taking it in the way that makes sense to her. Yeah, I want to get into doing some cards now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I have my Norse Goddess Rune Oracle, my newest deck.
I went to the Herbcrafters tarot.
Yeah.
I love a little herbal.
And both of these are sort of like non-traditional. Like mine's Oracle, so it's not even tarot. And then that one, it's sort of like it is tarot structure, but It has different names for like the page, king, queen stuff, and it has even a different format to the guidebook where it does like ace, 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 and then it will do like one, two, 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 like ace of this element. So usually I can like interpret, which tarot card it would be, like associated with, but it's also just a very like warm, gentle deck.
Yeah, I love this. I remember we read from this deck once, and I think I was like feeling sick at the time or something.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
like I literally
You got, like,
I was like,
tea.
oh, this is like my tea formula.
Yeah.
Like, there we go.
Right. Because it is like a literal like crafting deck
Yeah.
where it's like, here, you can make a wreath with this plant, or you can drink it, or you can like make an oil infusion with it, where it will sort of like some decks will give you a ritual or something to do. If you pull that card, that this deck kind of gives you like a recipe, like it's a very like kitchen witchery in that way. And the cards are beautiful. Like I love that it shows that it took me a long time to find a plant deck that I actually liked, because a lot of them show the plants, but then sometimes I'm like, I don't think they actually know anything about plant. I'm judgy.
Yeah.
Or I'm like this one will be like, yeah, like make a mint tea, or like how to use it. And the pictures depict not just the plant, or like not
But like the
just
medicinal use. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're also just very like calming.
Yeah. Fair
Like
enough.
like that one's like a little tea party.
So cute.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I know you wanted to do something
Yeah.
for all the single ladies out
All the
there.
single ladies. Not just the ladies.
The ladies.
All the singles.
All the singles.
All the lonely hearts.
Yeah. Yeah. So about what they need to hear right now. What I'm pulling.
A little collector reading.
Yeah. I'm a big, I don't even ask questions. I'm bad sometimes. I'm gonna see, I would say like up to 3. You can see the timer there.
Okay.
So I'm like, if we do more than 3, we're gonna be over time. So
I'm just gonna do one then.
yeah, I'm gonna start with 1 and then maybe I'll pull like a clarifying. Okay. And I just do a very, what do I need to know right now? What do we need to know? What do we need to hear? This is not how I usually shuffle, but we're going with it today because I don't really have a table to do it with. Okay. It's just so pretty.
Nice.
I pulled number 30, Ehwaz, and the goddess is Na, about partnership, momentum, and transportation.
Partnership. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah. And this one is literally like the rune is the name of the horse, where it's like your companion is your horse, because that's how you used to travel back in the day.
Nice. And I pulled 6 of fire, which is the Nasturtium plant.
Love.
And it's kind of got this little, it almost looks like those candles that they use in Mexico a lot.
Yeah.
They're like
the
those
saints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like a lot of flowers around, and little tea light in the center.
Mine also actually has a lot of flowers. We have her and like she's in a meadow. Yeah. And I feel like also very, like ritual and like relational, right? There's like a bunch of candles and a bunch of flowers. I feel like there's something there.
I also, one thing I do like to do, whenever I'm reading tarot, I have like a little weird habit I like, that I always like to look at like whenever I pull a card, what's the card on the bottom of the deck? I don't know. It's just, for me, it's like something I've done.
It's a little secret.
Yeah, of like, this is like like what's the inner feeling of the question? And so this also came with Madre of Air, Motherwort. And I almost honestly didn't even mention it. And then I literally opened the book and it took me right to Motherwort. And I was like, okay, it wants me to mention that. So
and I pulled this one, which is almost like, this gives opposite vibes of this. I gotta work on my Norse pronunciation. Purisaz Merkstave. And the goddess is Rindr, about aggression, conflict, and trouble. So I'm like very different than partnership, momentum, transportation, but perhaps related. And I've never seen that one. I pulled that one. I've pulled this one a couple different times.
Interesting. Yeah, so maybe I can just I'll just read maybe the kind of like themes of for the 6 of fire Nasturtium card. It's saying, celebrate yourself and others, call the circle, make some magic, glitter and spice magnify power and joy.
So all the singles need to get their
Oh, yeah,
friends.
I know.
And,
I'm even like kind of just briefly
party.
skimmed the paragraph, and it, this theme about community, I think, is what really stands out to me in this. Like that maybe there's a message here of like, yes, us singles out there, we're, feeling very lonely and isolated, but there is power in the collective and power in the community. And I actually saw something recently that like 30% of like the American population is single right now, like of adults,
Wow.
which is
Yeah.
like the
This
highest
is a
it's
lot.
ever
Yeah.
been. So yeah, I think that there's, something about maybe like not feeling lost in isolation and connecting to communities, celebrating yourself, right? That maybe, being single isn't like a horrible
Yeah.
situation. Like I
It's
think
not an affliction.
no, it's
Just
not.
like how it
Like why
gets
does our
connected
society
sometimes.
make that like
Well, and also I know it's like again, like as the therapist, I'm always like, well, some people needed to leave their partners. Like it's not, don't just be in a relationship because like you think that's a good idea. Like I like it should be fulfilling and like making positive changes in your life or different things. Like, but yeah, I feel like the vibe is like you don't have to be lonely. Like get all your friends and like be lonely together was my first thought. But I'm not, it's not even that. It's like celebrate, right? The fact that like you are looking for something, but like it hasn't come around yet. And like that's okay. Maybe there's something in this moment that is important, right? That you need to do with your 6 closest friends.
And I think there's like this fire element. I think I always feel like there's like a transformative energy in
Yeah,
that.
it's
And
like creativity. Like, so
yeah.
this would be like the 6 of Wands equivalent because it's fire. Yeah, which would be like creativity, a literal spark, right? Like, and also nasturtium, if you eat them, they kind of taste like radishes, where they're like a little, what I would call spicy, right? It's obviously a different spice than like something like a hot pepper or something, but they have like a fieriness about them, I would say, even though they're sort of like a cooling plant in color. The blooms are very fiery and beautiful.
Which I feel like even just thinking about like the season we're entering into, right? It's like fall here in the Pacific
Right?
Northwest.
All the colors are
Yeah,
changing.
like there's like that same kind of fall color vibe in this.
Can you put it closer to the camera?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there's like kind of a fall color vibe in that. And, I'm just looking at the recipe that came with this one too.
Oh yeah.
It
Okay.
says, magnify joy at your next gathering. Serve goat cheese mixed with nasturtium
Oh
petals
yeah.
and leaves.
Yeah,
Like,
because nasturtium, every part of the plant is out of.
sounds delicious. But it's like there's something in that I feel of like a little fieriness is what we need right now and in community. Like that there maybe is like when we are feeling stuck and getting out of a bad relationship or looking for a partner, that we have to remember we aren't alone and to connect with the people in our lives that can bring us nourishment, that we can feel like part of a community and with other people, and there can be a lot of power in that, and that can be even that energizing force that connects us with people that maybe one day we meet
Right. Yeah.
that,
Right. And then it's not just like a thing you do to like pass the time.
Right.
But it's like, no, this is like equally as important.
Yeah. And I think that, just to quickly also mention about the inner card, the Motherwort, that this one is saying talk a lot about nourishment and it says be fierce in service to the heart of the matter. And I think what for me stands out, like when I think of Motherwort too, it's a common like women's herb, like used as a nourishment, a tonic for women. And I think there's something in that I feel of like for all of us of needing nourishment when we're feeling alone or lonely, that is what it will get us through the difficulties.
Come to our full moon circle if you live with us, because we can circle up together.
Tell us about your
so I pulled, like I said, Ehwaz, which is like the companion, the horse companion. So mine has always like a little poem. It says, I am Nya, goddess on a quest. I have my horse, a friend, he is best. Over sea and sky together we ride true. May Ehwaz bring partnership in life's journey to you. So she is the goddess and handmaiden to the mighty goddess Frigg. She runs errands and delivers messages on her horse. And she's the true companion with respect and love for her steed, enabling her to be transported over the waters and through the air to realms beyond. So it really is like partnership with the thing that takes you places. And also, right, again, like maybe some people feel this way about their car, but like I'm very like functional about my car where I'm like, yeah, if it can take me places, but I don't usually think of it as like companionship. But yeah, so this is the rune also on here of partnership, meaning horse, literally, symbolic of forward movement, transportation, and companionship. So it does make me think of kind of like a chariot card, like the literal horse, forward movement. It says, for those living in medieval Scandinavia, horses were an effective and necessary form of transportation. They aided in swift journeys between towns. So it's also like aiding you with like freedom and message sending. It says it acknowledges this companionship, whether in the form of intimate partnership, friendship, family relationship, or spirit guide. It's the harmony and balance between two people. Love and equality found in truly compatible interactions. And also the energies that enable you to move forward on your life's journey, whether in physical or spiritual realms. Let's see, it says, yeah, signifies forward movement to keep traveling on your path. Positive energy that walks alongside you, at times leading you from the front when you're feeling lost or following you in support as you strive towards your goals. Acknowledge this energy, give gratitude, and ensure that harmony persists. Remember that sometimes you are the horse and sometimes you are the rider. Both parties need to work in harmony, integrity, and trust to maintain the relationship. And we have like very nice, like we're in a meadow, and she's like stroking the horses area. It's very nice.
Well, I think what's interesting about this card too is that like it's representing partnership, but that it's a woman with an animal, right? It's not like
it's not her man.
No, it's not like the Prince Charming.
Oh yeah, or even like her house, or like other things.
Right. That it's actually this is like a very like free spirited partnership. And what I feel was what stood out to me, especially in the description, was there's an element there of like reciprocality, like that. Right. You know, this is the horse is you know, providing something to the woman that you know is providing transportation and support, you know, that you can just sit and be taken anywhere. And the in reverse, right, the woman cares for the horse,
to feed it and water it and make sure it takes a rest. And yeah, again, right, it is like a lot more reciprocal than I often think about my transportation as being. But yeah, it's like it's a literal living creature that you have to nourish also in order to kind of like, again, go on your journey. So the card on the bottom of my deck was this one with a very, I don't know, we have like a very, like a maiden with a aggressive energy. Trouble. I know. So it says, I am Rindr, Vali is my child, Odin's revenge, prophecy gone wild, fallen ill by cursed runes, I was charmed. May Purisaz Merkstave protect you from harm. So she was the goddess who birthed Vali, the child who grew to be a man when he was 1 night old, taken by force as Odin demanded a son to avenge the murder of Baldar, and her dignity and autonomy was taken from her. Very interesting. This is like the opposite of this one, just in that like here she has her freedom.
But I think that's what I see in that is like, this is what we started with, like, okay, we're in a toxic relationship, we're running for our lives, we're like, you know, baby in hand escaping, you know, and then it's like, and now we're like a strong and free woman with her horse, you know, like that's the journey, that's the hero's journey.
Right. Yeah. Right. And just that like, and that for women it looks different like a lot of the time. So like it doesn't look like I was actually thinking the other day, I'm like, I wish we had like a Joseph Campbell Hero's Journey version that was for women. Yeah. Like, I feel like I read a lot of romantasy novels and like I was seeing a bit of like what that could look like for women, but I still feel like it's very like masculine, where it's like woman is like often like physically violated or like traumatized. Something happens, she gets to escape, then she like literally becomes a warrior, like an assassin, like it's very physical, where I'm like, what if girl just wants to like grow her corn and like like why do we have to just like be a warrior, that is like the peak experience of like you get to fight off all the evil, where I'm like, sure, there's like something to that, but like I don't aspire to be a warrior personally.
No, and that's something I see so much in a lot of my clients, like when they get out of like a bad relationship or any kind of toxic situation or any form of narcissistic abuse in particular, where it's like that, okay, I'm pursuing justice. And
Yeah.
I have been
Right.
there,
It's like you have to
like,
be a warrior a lot of the time to like get through it and fight.
and I think that is such an important phase for so many people. I know for myself, like that pursuit of justice was and is in a lot of ways still very important for me. But I think that discernment of like, okay, always fighting for justice is an exhausting journey.
Yeah. And it's like, what if I want to rest?
Yeah.
So,
And I think that is also like that kind of like the feminine strength of discernment, you know, like that I know when to fight and I also know when to like take a step back and preserve my energy. And that is also winning, right? Winning doesn't always look the same for every person in every situation.
yeah. And it's almost that, yeah, it's like starting out, you're in this like very intense, like pendulum swing going one way of like whatever it is, totally victimized, like totally having all these things happen to you. You swing the other way with justice, right? Of like, okay, I'm gonna like almost like win. I'm gonna like have this, right? They're gonna have to deal with kind of repercussions or like try to just get something that like feels more equal in that way. And then I feel like this card is like, well, actually, like partnership is like this.
Yeah.
Like it's like we're all nice and we just like give each other lots of things. We're both like getting stuff done, but like we're helping each other towards our goals. That it doesn't actually have to be like you doing everything on your own either. That like it's okay to be in partnership. We just have to find like healthy partnership.
It's like the extremes between like codependency and hyper independence.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, you know, I think that's people think that it's like, oh, well, I was in this very codependent, toxic relationship. So now I'm going to be super independent and I don't need anybody in my life. But actually, what's in the middle there is that like interdependence. Like we are like inherently social creatures.
Right.
We do need other
don't do well on her.
No, but I mean, as we're in a little house in the woods out here, but you know, but that is still, you know, we need people, we need community, and but finding that reciprocal relationship, that interdependence, that I do need people, and I'm also independent and able to meet my needs, and it's okay to ask for other people to meet my needs too.
Yeah, and like this story literally is that like Odin gets her pregnant because he wants a son, so that he can like use the son to like wage a war. And it's a very like, I'm like, yeah, it is like the beginning of the story. Beware of people or situations that may not be showing their true intent, often trickery, deceit, which can lull you into a false sense of security. Beware of the thorns hidden among the roses. It says even like can refer to ancestral trauma, recent traumatic events, or mental illness that can be causing pain and grief. It can also refer to a protective thorn bush that you've surrounded yourself with for protection. Reflect upon the thorn wall, for while it may offer protection, it may also keep out those who can bring love and comfort. And you can seek the wisdom of the goddess Rindr to help you overcome any adversity, for even through her suffering, she emerges as a mother with strength, courage, and power.
Oh, very powerful. I love that imagery of finding the rose among the thorns. You know, I think that is, you know, kind of maybe a lot of what we talked up today around like intuition and discernment. And I think that for me, but both through that journey of healing from a toxic relationship and also my journey in tarot has been like honing that skill of discernment and of my intuition, that like I can figure out what is aligned with me and who I am and what I want in my life. Like, what is that rose? And then how do I navigate the thorns? Like these thorns are inevitable in order to have a rose, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna like grip onto them and be like, you know, yay, like, you know, we gotta like very delicately move through that to find the good.
Yeah. And also I'm like, when I think about roses, I'm like, yeah, there's a lot more thorns than there are flowers.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, yeah, it can feel like the onslaught of thorns is like, oh my gosh, am I ever gonna get a rose? Right. Yeah, but that like, yeah, they come along, that there is that like it's on the journey.
Yeah. And there's seasons in that,
right?
Like there's not, you don't have roses blooming all year.
Right. So they go very dormant in winter.
Yeah. But that, you know, we're waiting for the right moment to bloom.
How lovely.
The imagery here.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we're done then. Look at us. We had 50 seconds
Oh,
left on
cool.
our timer. So, yeah, if you'd like to connect further with Izzy, you can do that on her Instagram at Rise Beyond Trauma, risebeyond.trauma. Your email, info@risebeyondtrauma, and I'll put the rest in the show notes. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can fill out the guest inquiry. Links for the tarot decks we talk about will always be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining us today on Everyday Tarot. Just a reminder, podcast comes out daily, Monday through Friday for all of 2025. And you can email me, me@CamilleASaunders.com with your thoughts, questions, and more. All right, see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. God,